whole circumpolar north is sitting on permafrost, so I don't know what you do. You can't insulate the whole north.
As Canada's permafrost continues to thaw, it is affecting Arctic communities and the long ribbon of roadway connecting them to the rest of the country, and that has many who live there deeply concerned. As part of our CBC News series In Our Backyard, the National Susan Ormiston traveled into northern Canada to see what climate change means for towns and the crucial infrastructure that keeps them going. And as she discovered, while the effects might manifest slowly, they are quite literally moving the ground beneath people's feet.
Hidden inside an historic church above the Arctic Circle is a story of our warming climate.
Be careful, watch your step. Low ceiling as well, and dark.
Parishioner Joe Lavoie offered to show us what you normally can't see.
I've been here for over 30 years and never seen a problem until these last 5 years. Of course, you can see all the poles that have fallen down. And if you look to that side, you see the gap underneath the blocking and the post.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We've blocked and reblocked several times. One time it was a funeral service going on. There was approximately 200 people attending, and the floor was shaking pretty bad. And so after the service, I asked the father if we should maybe come take a look. And about 50% of these posts were down.
Holy cow.
Right.
The Igloo Church, as it's called, was built on top of thick layers of earth and solid ice. But that concealed permafrost is now thawing, threatening the church's foundation. Joe, standing here, you can even see it's kind of sloping.
Right. Yes, I'd say probably it's down a downward slope of 3 to 4 inches minimum, maybe even more.
Wow.
Yeah. I could roll a marble here.
You sure don't want it to collapse.
Absolutely not. Yeah, that for sure, that would be a real tragedy.
The Inuvialuit have been living on ice for centuries, but the town Inuvik was only incorporated in 1961. Tradition is baked into their culture, just like the certainty of 24-hour sunlight in summer and a dark, frozen landscape in winter. But ask anyone here, the Western Arctic is warming faster than anywhere else in Canada, mean temperatures rising a staggering 3.5 degrees over 50 years. Most of the Western Arctic is underpinned by icy permafrost, and as it degrades, it's causing all kinds of challenges.
A big river.
The climate is not just warmer here, it's wetter. We're motoring up a branch of the Mackenzie River, which in winter is an ice highway. Chris Byrne has been coming up here for 36 years. He's professor of geography at Carleton University and works with the Aurora Research Institute. Byrne wanted to show us the dramatic changes in the Caribou Hills at an old camp called Reindeer Station.
Walking the plank, man.
Yep.
First, we have to navigate the landing.
There's about 90 meters of permafrost below us here.
And some of that is thawing.
The top of that is thawing.
Years ago, this was a Hudson's Bay trading post, solidly built like everything else on buried ice. But that scar in the hill was recently carved by a landslide. After heavy rain at the end of a summer, the warming earth simply gave way.
This is basically where the landslide finished.
And this wasn't the only one that night.
No. There's 87 other landslides from that night in about 17 kilometers of hillside. So it was a phenomenal event.
This is a remote retreat now. No one lives here permanently, but the changing geography is the same in populated areas.
We have to figure out what we're going to do in the future. And we have no basis to believe that this will not continue. It won't stop now. So then, when we make an investment in a building which is meant to last 50 years, if in 15 years it's no good, we've wasted a huge amount of resources.
Inuvik is adapting. An above-ground sewer system is being retrofitted. Flexible space frames prop up some housing. But it is patchwork. Back in the 60s, when Inuvik was built, permafrost seemed a more reliable, solid core.
We said we'd open roads into the north.
It was Prime Minister John Diefenbaker's dream.
Resources could be made available for the people of Canada.
A northern road linking southern Canada to the Arctic, a road to resources. The Dempster Highway finally opened in 1979, a construction marvel, over 700 kilometers of tundra. But every year, it costs more to upgrade the highway. Climate change over the last 15 years has pushed up costs by the millions.
It's kind of like the lifeblood of the Western Arctic.
Steve Coquelle is with the Northwest Territories Geological Survey. He's been up and down the Dempster for a decade.
Yeah, the Dempster Highway is built pretty much entirely over permafrost terrain. So the frozen ground beneath the road embankment provides a foundation for the embankment, and the actual road itself has a frozen core.
But this plateau is warmer and wetter now, and the highway is showing fatigue.
So clearly, Steve, the Dempster is falling off here. There's a big hole in the side of the road.
Yeah, this is a location. We have a slope where water is collecting along the side of the road, and the combination of warming climate, the impact of the road, and the moisture is causing the underlying ice-rich permafrost to thaw. And as that ice-rich permafrost thaws, the ground consolidates or settles proportional to how much ice there is in the ground. And this is one of the consequences of that.
Now, you told me that across here, this happened on the other side of the road first.
Yes.
Steve explains that load after load of gravel has been dumped into this subsidence just to keep the highway open, but it keeps sliding off, leading to a key question.
Do we fix it, or do we start to adapt differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really interesting and important discussion. It really emphasizes or highlights the need to start to think innovatively about the solutions, because these types of phenomena are going to become more and more commonplace.
He's not finished our permafrost lesson. A few kilometers down the road, we clamber up to a high ridge.
This whole area here has developed over the last couple of years, which is very, very rapid.
The head wall here has been carved out, exposing a wide band of ice.
So the bottom 5 to 8 meters is all ice.
So that's what's thawing.
That's exactly what's thawing, yeah.
Constant thawing is creating a gully of mud, pushing toward the Dempster Highway, which in time could compromise the road.
We've had this debris tongue that's grown about 150 meters towards the road. That's developed in the last 2 years.
Canada's permafrost problem has become a hot research environment. A recent Senate report identified northern infrastructure as an urgent priority. The challenge is luring international scientists and students, like this university team, on a field trip to study the ice under the tundra. Traveling further north on a new highway, we head towards Tuktoyaktuk on the Beaufort Sea. I made it to Tuk as a traveler's badge of honor, but this hamlet has become a climate change crucible.
Going forward, we're just not building anywhere near the coast anymore. We're slowly moving our infrastructure inland.
Mervyn Gruben, the mayor of Tuk, grew up here.
But it's there. See all the ice, the land that's melting?
Out on the point, Gruben's ancestors are buried now perilously close to the sea.
My grandfather Edgar, my grandmother Mary, she died young.
The cemetery's vulnerable. With more erosion, it could fall into the ocean. But moving graves is a last resort.
I don't know. Like where the whole circumpolar north is sitting on permafrost, so I don't know what you do. You can't insulate the whole north.
The dual threats of rising seas and thawing permafrost are undeniable to Sandy Adam, a homeowner in Tuck.
You could see the land eroding.
His house is exposed right near the rocky edge. In 50 years, he's watched that coast steadily erode.
How far out did the shoreline go?
Right to about the middle of the ocean. I mean, where the open water is. That's how far the land used to be. Here, it's really happening fast. We've got no time to waste.
What do you fear?
Well, I fear that my house can fall into the ocean.
His house is on an emergency list to be moved inland. 5 others already have.
I guess they gotta move me. Gotta move me where I don't want to go, but can't be helped.
Why don't you want to go?
I'm used to living at the point. And the cool air comes from the ocean when it's summertime, and you don't get as much bugs as inland. And it's better out here.
Coastal erosion could cost Tuktoyaktuk up to $50 million, a budget it doesn't have.
Hello, here we are. We made it to Tuck.
Environment Minister Catherine McKenna, on a recent trip to Tuck, was pressed to increase support for climate change costs.
Welcome to Tuck.
Thank you. Oh, hey, Mayor. How you doing?
So one of the things they say here is, look, we've studied this enough. We've lived it. We can't afford the infrastructure changes that are happening in the Arctic.
Well, I mean, we've already made investments and continue to make investments, but we are going to have to rethink how we build things and how do we build resilient infrastructure. We're going to need to work together and also really try to imagine what the future is going to be like so that, you know, that communities are resilient to the impacts of climate change.
In this land of pingos and permafrost, change has already come. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Tuktoyaktuk.